Two yet. She just came in. Two yet. But this part.
To estimate cost of a child, calculate what you believe you might be spending on children, and explain what your thoughts are on these expenditures.
Okay, very. I had to add this slide because many years ago I had this young lady in my class. She was probably 18 or 19 years old, and she said children were free.
No.
I almost fell over, And then I said, no, they're not free. She says, well, they're very cheap. I said, no, they're not cheap. Children are not cheap. Okay, so let's look at the math. Okay, and we have here room, food, and clothing, which is the survival level. So let's say a room $600 a month, right? Because you probably don't want to have your child sleeping in the living room or in the bathtub or something, right? So they need a room, right? I'm sure people do. I'm sure people have them sleeping in the living room. Okay, and then food, they're small, so maybe 200 a month might be okay. I don't know. And then clothing 50, right? That's I think the minimum per month because they keep growing, they keep getting bigger, right? You have to keep buying stuff. Okay, and this is here at 50 a month. You're probably shopping at Walmart or maybe Goodwill, right? Something like that. And so just for the child to survive, you need probably about 850 a month. Okay, then medical maybe 100 because kids get sick a lot. They get different things, colds, flus, whatever. And then dental maybe 100 for um, cleanings and fillings and whatever. And then education 50, which means 50. That means they're just walking to school and walking home. Okay, maybe they're buying an ice cream every day on their way back. And then toys maybe 50. But one of my students say a $50 toy is like a plastic truck. Okay, maybe. And then you need to put away $100 a month for an emergency. The kid breaks a leg, they break an arm, whatever, some emergency, right? To have a emergency fund in case something happens to them. So your annual expense for one child is your monthly expense is going to be about $1,250 a month, and your yearly total is probably going to be about $50,000 for one child. Okay. Then I multiplied. Hello. Let's see. So I multiply 19 years because it takes 9 months for the child to be born, and there are medical expenses related to the gestation of the child. And so one child is going to cost you about $285,000. One child. Okay. If you have one boy and one girl, you can double that, right? Because you probably do you think it's a good idea to put a boy and a girl in the same bed? Good idea or bad idea? It's a bad idea. So if you have a boy and a girl, now you need 2 rooms. Okay, now your monthly expense for a room is not 600, 1,200 a month, right? Because I agree with Teddy. It's probably not a good idea to put a boy and a girl in the same bedroom. Probably not, right? Anything could happen.
Why not? They're sister and brother.
Well, anything could happen. You don't know, right?
Yeah, well, people grow like 11 siblings at the same room.
That might look, I don't know. You got to really think about that.
Yeah.
You got to think about it. Okay, but if you have 2 boys or 2 girls, then you can hold your room expense at 600, right? So one boy and one girl, you're probably talking over $500,000. But if you have 2 boys or 2 girls, then you can probably get by with less than $500,000, depending on the situation. Okay, but now you know what it's going to cost you to have a child or 2, depending on whether it's a boy and a girl or 2 boys or 2 girls. Right? But to be fair, on minimum wage, you're going to make about $1 million in the next 4 years. Okay, so you could probably afford one child on minimum wage. If you're a single parent, you could probably afford one child on minimum wage. You make $1 million, the child costs you 285. That you still have about $700,000 for you. Okay, if you're a couple, 2 people, maybe you can afford 2, right? Because on minimum wage, you're going to make $2 million, and the 2 children, even if they're one boy and one girl, they're going to cost you about $500,000. That still leaves you $1.5 million for the 2. You can probably do 2. Okay. 3 is you better think about it. Right? 3, you better think about it because, or even 2, if you're a single parent on minimum wage and you're making $1 million in the next 4 years, but you're going to spend, let's say, $500,000 on 2 children, then that gives you $500,000 a year for you over the next 4 years, which is not too much. You're gonna end up in poverty. You're gonna be poor, right? $500,000 divided by 4 years is like $11,000 a year for you. Maybe $1,000 a month for you, and that's it. You're gonna be poor. You're gonna have to apply for food stamps, okay? And you're gonna have to apply for Section 8 housing, which is subsidized housing, which they do. People do this, but I don't know if you want to live like that. If you're in college, you want to live like that, and $1,000 a month. No, if you wouldn't be here if that was okay with you. Okay, so you gotta think about that. But the other thing too, if you finish your college education, then you're probably going to take home about $2 million in the next 4 years. Okay, so if you're a single parent with $2 million in the next 4 years, you could probably afford a child or two, even by yourself. Right? Even if it's a boy and a girl, let's say it costs you $500,000, that you still have $1.5 million for you in the next 4 years. You can probably swing it, assuming you have a college education and assuming that you're an average performer. Okay, if it's two college-educated people, okay, you're probably talking $4 million in the next 4 years. $4 million, you could probably have 4 kids. No? No, no. One?
At most.
Okay, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
You want to live nice. Yeah. But as long as you're willing to live so-so, you could probably do 3 or 4. If you're willing to live so-so, not excellent. Okay, like that. So those are the numbers. Those are the numbers. I had one student, she said she wanted to have 5 kids. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, I don't know how people do this, okay? But that to me sounds like a formula for poverty, for being poor. 5 kids, that sounds to me like, okay, you're getting yourself ready to be poor for the rest of your life, I think. Somebody says yes. So how many, Tundi, you say you want to have 1 or 2 children? Okay, how about the rest of you? How about King? Any idea what this is? 2, okay. Hello. Who else? How about Barish?
That's my ultimate dream.
What's your ultimate dream?
To have a child from every different nation.
So that's about 200 kids.
More than that.
More than that.
That's my ultimate dream.
Okay, fine. How about Uyen? How many children would you like to have? None.
None.
0. Okay, I understand that because of course children cost money, and when I was a young person, we were having a population, which we still are. We were having a population crisis, and they were telling us to focus on 0 population growth to try to eliminate poverty, which is what China did, right? China went to the one-child policy to try to reduce the population to reduce poverty. Okay, that was around 1980, or before that, actually before that, in the 70s and the 80s. Okay, so many years later, so we're talking 50 years later, we found out that's not such a good idea. Okay, even though it makes sense for you as an individual, as a couple, or as a family, for the economy and the country is not a good idea. Because what's happening in China with their one-child policy is that in the next 20 years or so, the Chinese population is going to be cut in half. Right now, there are about 1.3 billion people. About 20 years from now, they're going to be half of that. They're going to be about 600 million people. Half. Okay. Here's the problem. Let's say you're a taxi driver and you depend on the fares, right, to make a living. Let's say you lose half of your customers. What's going to happen to your lifestyle? It's going to go down the toilet. So people are projecting that China is going to be in a crisis within the next 10, 20 years because they're not going to have the people to sustain their economy. And that applies to every country. So yeah, it's good for you. It might be good for you, might be good for your family, but it's not going to be good for the society. To be honest, I hate to say this to you, okay, but actually most countries, and a lot of countries are going through this crisis. The most notable is China. China is in the midst of a population crisis. And they're going to have big problems, I think. That's what people are saying. In the next 10, 20 years, they're going to have a huge crisis with their economy because of this. Because they don't have enough young people to support the old people. Right? Young people working and paying taxes to support a growing geriatric population. Japan is the other country who's having this problem. And Japan is what they're doing is they're They're trying to substitute workers with robots. Well, there's only so many things robots can do, okay? And so the Japanese don't want anybody in Japan that is not Japanese. They don't want Asians. They don't want Africans. They don't want Europeans. They don't want anybody. Middle Eastern people. They don't want them. They only want only Japanese. So now they don't have workers. They don't have young people because they're not having children. Here's what you can test it. Go. There are a lot of Japanese markets in this area, like Marukai and Niji and whatever. Go to those supermarkets. Go in there because they're mostly Japanese shoppers, right? And you see nothing but a bunch of old people. Some middle-aged people, almost no children. That's the reality of Japan. They're already in a crisis. They're already having a crisis. Japanese economy has not been growing for the last 25 years. And they're in trouble. The Japanese people do. China and Japan are probably the two most indebted countries in the world. So they're borrowing money to sustain the economic level of the people because there's not enough production because there are no young people. So that's a problem. So from that point of view, same with Spain, same with Italy, same with South Korea. Many countries, especially the more advanced countries, are going through this process. So what we've learned, I think, in the last 50 years is that, and I'm sorry, okay, yeah, but we need every woman to have 2 or 3 children to keep the system going.
No, not really.
Why not?
Okay, I mean, if I don't bear any children, all the women can bear more children. Right?
Okay.
So why would it?
On average.
Average.
Okay.
I mean, this is me. So
Average.
only one person.
Okay.
I cannot ruin the whole system. Right?
Okay. So you'll have to convince other women to have 4 or 5 children. Okay. So to keep the average at around 2 or 3. Okay.
I believe later on there's a lot more things happen. So
A lot of what?
I don't know, but maybe they're like people change their mind all the time. Right now I say I don't have children. Later on I can't have children. So that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a very personal choice. It's up to you. But for the economy and the society, there are consequences. Okay. Let's look the demographic China. Okay. Okay. So here's what China looks like. I think this is pretty good. They all look pretty good, but this one's pretty good. Okay, so this is what, I don't know if I click on it, might go there. Sometimes it goes somewhere else. I don't know. I think it went somewhere else. That's good. Okay, so the red bars are the women and the blue bars are the men. Okay, now, ideally you want a demographic pyramid that looks like this, right? Where you have a lot of young people working and few supporting the older people. Right? That's what you want. Nigeria has that kind of thing. They have this type of normal pyramid. Okay, but China's population has now gone into kind of an inverted pyramid. In other words, once these older people disappear here, the pyramid is going to go upside down. Instead of being like this, it's going to be like this. Right? Let me see this. Like this, it's going to be like this, like this. A lot of older people here, right, and few young people, right. So it's going to go. It's kind of like a sphere right now, but it's going to turn into this as these older people die. That's a problem. That's a problem. You'll have a lot of old people and not enough young people to support the old people. So this is a concern. Maybe it's up to you. You know, if you can do whatever you want. But for the society and the economy, it's a problem. If we look at the population pyramid of Japan, let's see. It's also pretty bad. Okay, maybe this is good. This looks pretty good. Oh no, that's old. I don't know. Well, let's pick this one. Okay, it's the same thing. You have relatively few people in comparison with the older people. Okay, so it looks like a sphere, but as these older people die, it's going to turn into upside down pyramid. With a lot of old people at the top and relatively few people, young people at the bottom. This is causing problems in Japan. Okay, let's look at Nigeria. I think Nigeria has a good, if I'm not mistaken, they have a pretty healthy demographic pyramid. I believe. Okay, there it is. Yeah, I was right. Okay, this is what you're looking for, right? Right? You have relatively few old people. You have a lot of young people. Okay, a lot of young people working, paying taxes to support the old people. This is a very healthy demographic pyramid. This is sustainable. The others are not. They're not sustainable. You can't have a bunch of old people with few young people. It's not going to work. It's going to collapse. Yes or no? Yes. This will work because the young people will work and they'll pay taxes and they will provide the resources for the old people. I'm sorry?
It's beauty.
Is what?
It's like, I mean, like the beauty. It's like women and men, they are.
Pretty equal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in China, that's not the case. In China, since there's a preference for men, for boys, they've, over the years, they've aborted a lot of the girls. And so now there's an imbalance. There's too many men in China and not enough women. It's unfortunate. So that's my answer to Ian, okay? But you said that's not her problem. She's going to convince other women to have 5 or 6 children so that to make it even. Okay. Well, it's up to you. It's your life. You got to choose. You got to decide. Okay. One more slide.